So today is Thursday, July 16th, 2020. I'm Steven Sersky. This is my podcast, episode number 13. Today I have another special guest with me, Chen Caiwei. She is a journalist here in Beijing, China. She was actually one of my former students, a communication major at university, and she is hoping to continue her studies later on in the year in the United States of America. Hopefully, given that there is certain restrictions on traveling right now abroad to the United States and around the world. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about second language acquisition, and then also how to make the language that you do actually acquire, your second language, obviously, or third, and applying it to your real life, your work situations, not just with friends and family, but then also with your own work. So with that, I'm interested to get things underway with Chen Caiwei. Where do you want to begin? Because let's see. We have known each other for 3 or 4 years now. And just today, you were sending me messages over the WeChat that English teachers, not all of them are bad, not all of them are good, but some of them are taking advantage. And you said these words. Do you want to start with the whole white privilege discussion? Or do you want to sidestep that and leave that to a blog post at some other time for you to recover from? Because I do have a response to it, and I wonder if just how that conversation would go.
Okay, so I would love to hear your response, and I'm pretty sure I didn't use the word bad. Like, of course, there are English teachers that are bad, but that's not what I'm talking about. So let me just repeat or explain myself about what I said about English teachers. So we were talking about you were saying like how English teacher like the job won't get to any further in dating, right?
Yeah, okay. The full setup to this is that you were looking for people to interview for an article, and I
Yeah.
suggested go to Tinder and swipe right. You'll find lots of people. And then after that, I gave you a demo dialogue of what usually happens to people like me on Tinder when I was on Tinder, and that how as soon as a woman, especially in the Chaoyang district, which is the east side of Beijing, when they find out that you're an English teacher, they go, okay, no, goodbye, and they block you. But anyway, yes. So you're saying that not all of them are bad. I agree, although there are some bad teachers out there. So where are you going with that in terms of
Well,
good teacher, bad teacher, qualifications of a teacher?
I'm sorry you're now jaded because of the rejection of women in my country. And what I was just trying to say is that as a woman who lives in Chaoyang district, I want to simply just reject somebody or deny the possibility of becoming friends or even date somebody just because he's an English teacher. There has to be something else. Like
Oh, you're a poor English teacher.
no, it's not like
Oh,
English teacher is
there.
a
That'll
bad
get the
thing. It's
that'll
just
get the company after me.
is because it's a common thing. It's something you will assume from a 25 to 35-year-old white, like trouble loving Chinese learning man.
Uh, okay, so what do you mean by tr- what? Chinese learning man. Okay, so they're all trying to learn Chinese. I understand what you mean because and it's not
Mm-hmm.
just white guys either. It's anyone who comes to China. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not sure you might predominantly meet white guys, but I know like in the foreigner communities and in the bars and the clubs of the mean streets of Haidian district, where we both used to live at some point, that there are a lot
Mhm.
more international students from around the world. But in terms of that, they're all learning Chinese. So do you find that that's, can I say a turn on or a turn off when someone approaches you and says, "Hey, ni hao, ni zemala, ha 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 ha"?
Oh, okay. That's what we're talking about, how to like get Chinese girls. But for me, it's funny. So I once matched the Spanish. Well, he claims to be a Spanish journalist on Tinder. So we matched, and it was totally funny. So we were initially talking in English, and he just like always tried to cut the conversation and switch into Chinese. But the point is, his Chinese might already be better than like most of the foreign guys out there, but still not there for like normal conversation. So I was like extra grumpy that night. So I said, "Why are you speaking Chinese?" Um, See, so when he speak Chinese, I just responded with in a non-accommodating way. So I'm not like saying things that are like easier to understand and simpler to accommodate him. I just say like what I would say if I'm really chatting with a Chinese friend.
Hmm.
And he just like ended up cannot keep up with that conversation because his Chinese is not as good as he claimed to be. So it just ended up like he asked a question, 你住在哪儿? And I said like 我住在东三环. 然后他说你家是在哪里，或者是你老家在哪？ Then I say like I'm from Hubei. So it becomes like a census. He's just keeping asking me questions because he cannot like respond anything further. And then I said in English, this is like a census. Are you doing a survey or investigation on me? In a like not so polite way. And then he stopped talking to me.
Yeah, that's the death knell of any conversation when a girl says, "What the fuck are you trying to say?" That's over. It's done. Okay, all right. Just be able to delete and move on. Swipe right to the next one. But okay,
Yeah,
because
I
this is not, I don't, this is not exclusive to Chinese women or to any woman who's around the world who's encountering a foreigner trying to learn the language, because this happens to white guys or foreigners moving into the country, where we are targeted by a lot of different people to simply practice the language. And this happens all the time, probably more often than you could actually, uh, more more often than you would think it would be possible. But and it's not just in the bars; it's in the cafes. It's students all of a sudden want to strike up conversations and be friends with you, but they're not actually
and you
wanting to
get
be
plenty
friends.
of that.
It happens all the time. They're your best friend until the semester ends, and then once the semester is over, it's like, who are you? Who are you, old strange man? Get away from me. So, but in that sense, so if you were doing that conversation in English, would it be the
Mhm.
same thing where you're asking where they live, what do you do? It's the same standard conversation that you have in hostels around the world. I mean, it's the same standard six questions. Who are you? What's your name? Where are you from? What do you do? How much money do you make sometimes? And like, where do you want to go next or something like that?
No, that's bad conversation. It's not even like in what language, and it's not even the attitude, the unearned confidence he has in his spoken Chinese. It's just a bad conversation to just keep like um asking questions and throwing them on the other person and about like personal life and details. I don't even know you. Why do I have to tell you where I live? And if I tell you where I live, at least can you like give me some response, or like we have a little talk, small talk, right? You respond something to the other person's information. If you're not like giving ideal feedback to the information I'm offering, I have the right to stop giving out more information.
You have the right to block them anyway. It's Tinder. I mean, that's the game. I mean, you say one thing or even allude to anything that someone doesn't like and gone, deleted, blocked, no more lifetime friendship anymore. But what do you mean by ideal response?
It just like it make you want to like respond for another round. It makes you want to talk more.
So if someone asks you like where are you from and you say well I'm from Hubei province, which I mean as an English teacher when you're asking
Mhm.
that question or you're answering that question, a lot of my students would say that I'm from Hubei province, I'm from Shandong province, and you're going that's a large place. That's like saying well I'm from China. Okay, it was where in China? Because
Mhm.
if you are in China and you're in Beijing and then you answer, well, I'm from Shandong province. Now, most foreigners will be like, I have no idea if Shandong province is a city or something else. But
Yeah,
when
like
when you're a foreigner and you
the
say,
problem
"Oh, I'm
is
from London or Toronto," that's a specific place, right?
well that depends. Like I only tell people so most of the time when people ask me like where exactly in China I'm from, Caiwei, because my hometown, the city is called Xiangyang. It's not that famous, like even to Chinese people. But if someone's from like Qingdao or Dalian, like these or Wuhan, like these cities are just more better known to people. So they would just say the name of the city,
Pretty
right?
sure
This
if
makes
I
sense.
ever
And
said Dalian, no one I know would be like, "Oh, Dalian, right? That city." No
yeah,
one.
that's the problem if you are a foreigner and you know nothing about like the small places other than Beijing and Shanghai in China, I understand. It's totally fine. And then don't ask that question. So if you ask me where I'm from, and I say, oh, I'm from Hubei, and you can say, oh, okay, I know something from Hubei, then the conversation continues. Or if you don't know anything about it, you at least show you're interested. You're like, oh, okay, what's there in Hubei? Right? You
Okay,
can
so
like
but
just keep.
let's say for instance you're if you go back to New York because you've been in New York before, you've been to the States, but someone
Mhm.
in New York, and New York is sort of an international, not sort of, it is an international cosmopolitan city, but someone asks you where are you from in New York, given the context that it is New York, would you give them the benefit of the doubt? Well, I'm from Hubei, China, or would you just say, well, I'm from China?
In New York, I would say, where do you think I'm from?
Oh,
Just
snap.
because it's fun.
And then they would say, well,
Just
obviously you're
because it's fun.
Japanese, right? Or you look Korean, or you look a bit Mongolian. And you would say what?
Oh, really? What it means? Like,
But
is it my
that's what they would
forehead?
say. I
I look
mean, because
Mongolian?
they would respond with that and they go, oh, well, you could be Japanese, you could be South Korean, because they might not
Mm.
want to state the obvious. Oh, well, you look Chinese, because that might be seen as being offensive to say that. So then how would you
Why? Why?
respond if someone would say, oh, you look Japanese?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I don't know. Like, what is the prominent Japanese trait? And
The Asian face. What else is there? I
yeah,
mean,
I'm just.
what else?
Well, what I'm
What would
curious
you
about, or
consider to
like,
be the Japanese face?
what's more important? What's more important is not the question or not where I'm from. The fact is just I want to know why this person is asking where I'm from. And by not answering that question, I got to know more about him or her and to decide if he's worth keep talking to.
So you actually wouldn't answer the question. They would ask you, "Oh, where are you from?" You'd be like, "What do you mean where I'm from? Why do you want to know?"
Yeah. And where do you think I'm from? So I actually got asked that a lot in the States.
Yeah,
Most of the time,
it happens all the time. It's a standard
yeah, like
question.
it's you get tired of that. Yeah, and like after a thousand times, you get really tired of that. And so this is like the exact thing I went through, and I decided to be a little bit playful on this question, and I actually did just say weird things to this question
Such as?
and surprise people. So there's one time in New York, in MoMA, actually, the museum, and there's this coffee guy. I was getting a coffee. This
That's where
coffee
this cup
guy
is from. MoMA, right here. Oh,
oh,
sorry. No,
really?
no, sorry. This is Guggenheim. Sorry. Wrong one.
Guggenheim is good. MoMA is the best. I like MoMA. Okay, but so the coffee guy, he asked, where are you from? And I said, Maryland, because I was like studying in Maryland before I came to New York.
You can't pull off
So he
Maryland.
said,
Sorry.
I knew it. You have a Maryland accent. Yeah, and he actually did say that. He say, I knew it. You have a Maryland accent, and that was a surprise. That came out like totally as a surprise to me. I was like, okay, what is Maryland accent? And this totally proved that he's not curious at all. And we are just like saying random things to keep the conversation going. And at least he's acknowledging my English as a native speaker. So that's a good thing. Yeah. And so this conversation just ended there. And there's another time when I was on a Uber ride. And the driver again asked where I'm from. And I asked him, where did he think I'm from? And that's the I did this multiple times too with different drivers. And there's one that I remember the most. He think I'm Chinese, but at least are in US for 8 years based on my accent and how I speak. And then he said he think I'm a makeup artist.
Because you had your makeup done up, probably, right?
I don't know. It's not even that like dramatic. I probably had makeup on that day. He said I probably am a makeup artist that has been living in the US for at least 8 years. Yeah, that's very accurate
Right.
assumption.
See, but when someone
Which is
says that, because I get this too, and I understand what you're saying, like that you want to be playful with that type of question, because I get it too. That conversation happens in hostels around the world. If you travel anywhere else in the world, it's a standard question, and you get bored with it. But there are people who will know, or at least understand where you're from, but they don't want to say where they think or know you are from, because like, well, then they're just gonna assume the worst of like I'm stereotyping or whatever. I mean,
yeah.
it sounds like by you becoming joking about it. I know here in China, I get that question all the time, and I if I'm okay, if I've slept well and I've had my coffee for the day, I'm usually okay with answering, yes, I'm Canadian. No, I'm not American, but thank you for asking me. Other times I'm like, ting badang, ting badang. I don't understand. Sorry, don't know, don't understand. And it's
Oh
a self
yeah,
defense
that's right.
mechanism.
Yeah.
It's because I can't have
That
this
would be
conversation
fine.
again.
Yeah, I would pretend I don't speak English next time. Like if in the States anybody asks me this.
Yeah, but that's not a good idea, because in the States, if you say that you don't understand English, they're like, then why are you here? Whereas in China, there's no test to come no test of Chinese proficiency to enter the country. Whereas in the States, you have to prove your proficiency, especially if you're a student, right?
Yeah.
So with Chinese, it's like if you're where are you from? Oh, Ting Budong, Ting Budong. But by stating Ting Budong, the problem with doing that, and this opens a whole new problem of like, okay, I've stated I don't understand, but I've stated it in Chinese. And now they
Mm-hmm.
think I understand Chinese, which is even worse because I don't
No,
understand Chinese.
they wouldn't. They wouldn't assume you speaking in the wrong tone of 听不懂 will understand Chinese. They were just trying to joke around.
Right, but then the next thing they say, "Oh, 你的中文非常好," and I'm like, "No, I've said
Ah,
three words.
oh my god,
Three words. It's not
hear
Fei
that
Cheng
calm.
Hao. It's not
No,
it's
like
not good enough."
the bar for white people is just it's like incredibly low.
I gotta
Any
stop
like
you. It is
Chinese,
not just white people. I think you have to stop saying that it's not just white people, it's foreigners learning Mandarin Chinese.
it's mostly white people.
Only because a lot of white people do come to China to be English teachers or to work in China. It is not just white people who cannot
Yeah,
pronounce
like,
Mandarin Chinese tones.
and by saying this, we circle back to our original topic of like why I can sort of tell by somebody's Tinder profile what they write if someone's an English teacher, and why like a lot of women think English teacher is some sort of a disappointment is because English teachers are exactly the sort of people who, well, they come all the way to China, right, from whatever English speaking Western country they're from, and they have to they have to like not hate travel and are open minded or like love adventure in to some extent, and they don't have to learn Chinese. Their job is to teach English to people, and they're getting paid for possessing the ability to deliver in their native language, and they can learn Chinese, but they don't have to, and they just do it because they think it's cool or it's fun, but there's no pressure, so they're not really like trying. But on the other hand, there's the study abroad students. Some of them are from like Africa, from Middle East countries. They're from the Southeast Asia, and so some of them are white, and like they can look the same with the English teachers, and some of them like still work part-time as English teachers, and they try. The study abroad students in China, they try harder than the white people that just come to China to teach English, because a lot of them have to take their courses in Chinese, and they will actually face the pressure. The It's more of a mental pressure and the identity crisis thing to blend in the Chinese student community. And
It's not
I
that
got to say that
I understand what you're saying with the in terms of they have to learn Chinese.
The
It's
Africans, they speak perfect Chinese. Like really, I did this interview on my college, which has in China, which has a lot of international students, and like there are a few American students, and they're in my college. They're not like they get their education, they take their courses in English, and there are people from North Korea, from South Korea, from Indonesia, Vietnam, and from a lot of African countries, Pakistan. These like the
Pakistan's not
African girls, they
African though.
speak like the perfect Chinese. They have all the tones right.
Which countries do you
And
mean in Africa, though? I mean, because you're saying white people, which is like a massive amount of people, and then you're talking Africans. Well, but which Africans? Which part of Africa? If
I
you're going
think
to
the girl
generalize like
I
that,
talked
who are
with
you
is
referring to?
I think the girl I talked to is from Ghana. Hmm. Yeah, and yeah, and there's this girl from I forgot the country, but it's like Middle East country, and she speaks really good Chinese. I'm like totally impressed. Yeah.
So
So
then, when you refer
they
to white people, who are you referring to? Are you talking about usually it's an American guy that has been here for like a year or 2 years on his gap year, or who are you referring to when you say white guy?
I'm generally, well, this might not be the most like accurate or the best way to put it, but
It's sounding
to
like
like
it's
just
not.
generalize. Right. Yeah. Well, what I'm trying to say is that the guys from developed wealthy countries um who have choices,
So they're not necessarily
who
white. They're not
yeah, not
necessarily
necessarily.
English teachers, but usually they are English teachers because people who have choices and are educated and are willing to travel and to relocate for a job, and maybe because they're not really happy with the selection of girlfriends back at home, they go overseas to see what else could happen.
Well, of course it's not an English teacher thing. Yes, a lot of people in the other walks of life are like this too. Yeah,
Well, so
but
have
there's
you met? Okay, so we've been talking a lot about English teachers and like these students
Mhm.
because that's the two primary focuses. Like, and Beijing has made up a lot of them, especially in Haidian. You have English teachers and then international students. But how many of
Yeah.
those of the foreigners that you've met, and I don't, and not just white people, but or not just Africans, which is another overgeneralization, but like in general, how
Huh.
many other nationalities have you met that are able to speak English or Chinese, and which one do you normally speak in?
Mm, okay, I'll talk about like the colleagues, the coworkers I used to work with. So at my current company, which is a English language media, online media. So we have like foreign employees. We used to have plenty. And most of them are not from the States. So we have people from Sweden, and we have I have a good friend, a colleague from Russia, and we speaking English. Yeah, mostly we speaking English
Right. What about here in
because it's
Beijing, though?
to most people like foreigners.
Yeah.
Uh, well, I only so most of the time still English. That's the like the universal language or the medium people rely on to when like your face look foreign. But the only the only exception would be when you're actually in the Wudao area or in like BLCU in particular.
Why those places? Because I mean, there's a lot of foreigners over there.
Yes, and that's the place where there are foreigners that speak legit Chinese.
Because they're
And
Chinese students. I know, I've met these people. I hear
yeah,
them speak. I'm like, holy, are you Chinese by birth? But they speak very good Chinese, and I ask them how do they do it, and their answer is usually the same thing. It's like lots of practice, lots of time, and I literally only speak Chinese all the day, all time, all the time. But I mean, when you say foreign face, it's kind of funny because you say it. I'm like, I don't. Can you say that? I mean, it's is it appropriate to say if I see a foreign face, I'll speak English? Because and I had this conversation with another a colleague of mine who was also whenever we're in China and someone says thank you to us, we're going, why did you assume that I only know the words thank you? Why not like spasiba or
yeah,
diakoyu or something
that's
else, not xie, which is what it is in Chinese? Like, why would you
well,
assume that I'm
that's a
English
different
and
that's a
not able
different
to
thing.
speak
That's a
Chinese?
different thing. When you're trying to like communicate in like, real intense information intensive way, like you try to say, I will try to say English, and but what you just mentioned, and I 100% agree, and I have like definitely been there with a lot of my friends and colleagues, and that's what called over accommodation, and I don't like it. And I used to do that too, but I don't do that now. I do not do that anymore. So if a
So you
foreign
stop saying
face,
thank you to these foreigners. You know, it's xie xie.
yes,
That's what it
yes,
is.
yes, it's 谢谢, like or 不好意思. I just say Chinese because I don't have to accommodate to them with such like simple things, and everybody should know them if you're in China. When I'm in the US, nobody say 谢谢 to me instead of thank you. So I'm not gonna accommodate you too much. Um, that's what I'm doing right now. So I saw my colleague, one of my friends, we were together in the shopping mall, and there's this foreigner looking guy just like hold the door at
Foreigner looking guy again. Okay, so he's holding the door
yeah.
for you, and and you say yes, yeah.
No, my friend, she just like the word just came out of her mouth. She said thank you. And then I actually did. I told her like you shouldn't be doing this, and there's no need for doing this. We I mean like we can speak English, but that doesn't mean like we have to automatically switch to English when we assume you're an English speaker or you are not a Chinese speaker. This is not respectful to that person, and it's like not respectful or comfortable for us too. So I stopped doing that, and that's what I'm like I stopped using an English name after freshman year.
Oh yeah, you told me don't call me that. Joe, when did it change? when did okay? Your WeChat name still says it, but and I won't say what it is. But okay, fine, all right.
It's
But
not.
so,
Not.
but with
Well,
that though,
it was only that for years because WeChat doesn't allow you to change it, but now it does, and I changed it.
well, at
I
least
changed
you
it.
have
So
what many people would call is a regular name. Twinkle Toe, God Fairy Princess. She might have an issue either as like either identity or like ego. I don't know. But in going back to this saying thank you, like, and it's only two words, right? Uh, so if someone in New York or Toronto, Winnipeg, my hometown, or Vancouver, anywhere else, London, if they if you open the door for them or vice versa, and they said yes, yeah, what would you assume right away?
why do you have to do this to me? Do I look too foreign to fit in here, or do I look like I don't know English?
What if they said arigato? Or what's the
I
Korean word? 감사합니다. What if they said something like that instead? Something that obviously you're going, I nope,
you know you're
not the
Korean.
country, not from
Well, I'll
there.
be like, oh, okay, that's not expected, but okay.
So what would your
If I,
response be? That would you still feel disrespected if someone said, obviously not the thank you word in an English speaking word country?
that depends. Like it. Well, if that person says thank you in Korean or Japanese, they could still be like thinking I'm of that race or culture because I can pass as a Japanese and Korean based on how I look. Um, but that's not the usual assumption you make when like seeing East Asian looking people, because like Chinese is obviously the biggest demographic group there. But yeah, I wouldn't think I would feel it's disrespectful if he or she speaks in Japanese or Korean. Firstly, because I might not be able to like realize that means thank you in a very quick way. I might like what was that, and then realize, all right, he's saying thank you. And the second reason is that I would be curious, like, what did I do that made me look Korean, or is this guy just being playful? What's this about?
All right. So with that though, I mean, following that, your response to them, what would it be? Would it be in English or would it be in Chinese or would you pick a third language that you know for some reason? You're like, yes. Maybe you give the sign language for it, which I don't know any sign language, sadly. But I mean, what would your response? So you're walking there, you know who you are, Chinese born, speaking English, and they open the door for you, and they say, or you open the door for them, and they say, "Oh, 감사합니다," and you say, what's the next word out of your mouth? I mean, is it English? Is it Chinese? Is it a third language?
I would
Grazie.
think.
Italian. Pick
I
Italian.
would. What's your welcome in Italian? Do you even know?
Grazie. Or you could say
Really?
merci in French.
Merci. Yeah, that's French. I think I would just say in English, maybe like I'll say okay or
Okay.
welcome.
Good. Thank
Confusing
you.
way.
Door opened. Thank you very much. Bye now. Is that how that
Yeah.
one works?
Whatever you're doing, you get my attention for 3 seconds and door open. I'm gone.
Door open, door closed. Conversation over. Done. No chance, no playfulness. Thank you. Goodbye. Welcome to the free world, right? Welcome to a cosmopolitan city. No one gives a shit. No one cares. No one. Yeah, it's actually, I mean, in terms of speaking and learning a language, and a lot of my students that when they go overseas, actually one of the worst things that happens when they are overseas is that they only hang around their culture, their friends. So like only the Chinese speakers or the only Japanese, Korean speakers. But here in Beijing and in China, I have noticed that there are two separate types of foreigners, and if you want to break, just basically English teachers, basically, but foreigners in general, expats, and not necessarily white, not necessarily black or any from one country, but there's two types. There's one that will break away from the expat community and they will ingratiate themselves into the local community, try to learn the local language, not just to pick up women or boys or whatever, or girls or guys or whatever. But then there's the other kind that sit there go, where's the pub that is familiar, or where's the restaurant that's familiar? Where are some people I can speak English with and have something familiar with? And they're just miles apart. And the weirdest thing about this separation is that even the
But where are those
people,
places?
well, there's
Jing'e,
but
Lobos.
Jing A is a lot of Chinese people these days. I've noticed in the last 6 months, there's not as many foreigners,
There's
and
a
it's
Jing'e,
packed
new
with
Jing'e
Chinese
opening
people.
just across from my company building.
In Guomao, really?
Yeah.
All right.
Like 2 blocks from the beer smiths. You went to that day.
Oh, that one, but that was supposed to be Stone Brewery. I think Jing A. Is that one actually opening though?
It's
Because there was a beer
not
place that
opening.
was
It's
supposed
not
to
opening.
open, but it hasn't yet.
There's this like poster and it says coming soon. It's under construction.
I don't know if it will because there was supposed to be another pub downtown in Guomao. And for those who don't know, Guomao is sort of like the central district, the central business district, but it is not the central district of Beijing. It's a lie. It's just where the big tall buildings are. It's not where all the decisions are made. That's near the Forbidden City. But so there's a few. I guess there's a new
Well,
pub, but getting back to that
let me
whole
point out
expat
something.
comment, I mean, those people who that separation, like the people who ingratiate and the people who don't, it doesn't mean that the people who don't ingratiate that they can't have a foreign wife, because they can, but then they will learn that ni ju zainar, ni hao, ni zemola, like it's the very basic conversational 6 sentences over and over again, never changing type of language, which I don't know. I'm sure those Chinese people exist overseas as well. In Chinatowns around the world, there has to be the people who only know the 6 standard English lines that got them through
I've met a
immigration.
lot of those. I've met a lot of those in New York and in other parts of US. Yeah.
Do you go to
And
Chinatowns? Like when you travel, do you go to, because every city has a Chinatown. Do you ever go there and be like, "Hey, let's see what my country has to offer. My people."
Well, in New York, there's Chinese people everywhere. There's Chinese people just here and there and everywhere. You don't even have to go to Chinatown. And what's what's funny is that the only two times I go to Chinatown is I don't go there for to feel at home or to get the um yeah, I'm not under the impression that this place is anything like home. It feels very exotic. It's more exotic than the normal New York City even.
In what
So
way?
it's more like a in a way that it's not the Chinatown is not, especially the New York City one. It's not it's not built on the actual China, or at least the contemporary developed bigger city China scene. It's built on the imaginary China that are like back in 80s or 70s or something. Like I
60s
read
when they
somewhere,
emigrated from China, from Fujian province. Typically, that's where they came from.
yeah, probably, and it's a like it's an ongoing. It's not like it ends there and it doesn't change. Chinatown is now a hybrid of Chinese immigrants and their offsprings that grow up in vastly different environments and socioeconomic conditions and have very different perceptions of what China is like, or have very different imaginary China in their head. So it just all feels very exotic and weird and surreal. So my friend and I, we went to this dim sum place. Dim sum is a Cantonese, like very delicate, small, like dish.
Tiny
And
portions. I'm still hungry after I'm eating them dim sum portions. That's what that is.
you're supposed to eat a lot, like
Yeah, but
different.
how much is that one? $6. How much is that one? $6. How much is that one? $10. Okay, now I'm going to the noodle shop across the street because they offer me for $6 a bowl I can't finish.
Oh, well, so in that place, they play the music, right? The music is just so weird. I mean, I understand they have a China theme, and that one is consistent, but like I hear the song 青藏高原, which is like this super spring festival gala thing, and like no young people I would know of will listen to that song.
No one. It's
And
an old people song.
it's not even an old people song. It's like a very like festive and special occasion and mainstream popular, but and it's a song known for the extremely high notes. There is a high notes because it's called 青藏高原, which is the what's 青藏高原 called in English? It's a anyway, it's a place that is known for its high altitudes. So so the note goes really high too. So whether like an old generation singer wants to showcase her singing skills, she will sing that song because like that note goes like this, and it's just a song of special function. Nobody will actually listen to it because it hurts your ear, and yeah, and they played that song with like a another song that is popular in when I'm like 7 in primary school. So it's called 老鼠爱大米. It's like just this very tacky and uh it's kind of a earworm, and it's just tacky and cheesy love song that's internet popular, and nobody will listen to it. Again, no one that is saying that I know of will listen to it. The only time people play that song would be for a popular culture study of
or traditional settings, basically, like around Spring
Not
Festival
traditional
time.
studies, for like to study popular culture in 2005 probably, or like whatever year that song is published, because it's just very tacky, and the lyrics is that I love you like the mouse like the rice, and it's just nobody listen to these songs right now in China. It's very outdated, and they play all these like different mix of songs together, like one by one. And are they popular or like can be considered as signature staple in Chinese popular culture? Yes. Or not even popular culture, just mainstream culture that represents different years of China. But this is conceptual China and it's not real China. No real restaurant in China will play those songs, and definitely not together, one after another. So that was just, and that restaurant just play music super loud. That was a very surreal experience.
But with those songs, like if you were to approach that as a foreigner, someone who doesn't know anything about Chinese culture, Chinese music, and you walked into that restaurant and you heard that music, would you say, "Oh, this is very Chinesey. Now I feel like having noodles," or something like, "Now I'm put into the mood of having Chinese food," sort of thing, because that's what that restaurant is. I understand what you're saying because in modern China, you don't hear the traditional music is played around Spring Festival, but
Mm-hmm.
then other than that, it's like what's the that American girl, Miley Cyrus, not Britney Spears, is the other girl who's very famous. Um,
Ariana Grande.
Mariah Carey is actually what it is. Because it's she Taylor Swift. That's the one. Taylor Swift because she's country. And I'm going,
Okay,
she's not really country, but then it's
she's
also
urban,
K-pop.
you know.
She could be whatever she wants. Doesn't She's not country. I can tell you that. She's pop rock, if anything. But then it's
Yeah.
also
Oh, fun
K-pop.
fact.
It's all
Fun
a lot
fact.
of this South
Taylor
Korean
Swift.
K-pop music.
Taylor Swift is hugely popular in China. You cannot imagine that. Like I think never really look into this, but Taylor Swift is the mainstream Western pop singer that has the most following in Chinese internet. It
I
has to
don't
be Taylor
need to
Swift.
research this because I'm told this all the time. I literally hear
Yeah,
this all.
this is
Oh,
weird. This is very weird.
I love Taylor Swift. I'm like, you don't know who Taylor Swift is, and you ask them about this or that or another thing. What's your favorite song? And they mention. I don't even know what the songs are. I couldn't tell you what one Taylor Swift song is, but I know that all these Chinese girls and guys all of a sudden just love country music. And you go, why do you like country music? Oh, because Taylor Swift. You go, that's not country. When I think of country music, I think of like Steve Earle, Keith, not even Keith Urban. Keith Urban's not even proper country. He can be, but he's not really. Who's the other guy? Honky Tonk You. Toby Keith. That's who I'm thinking. That's country
And
music.
it's there's a guy called John Denver, right? Denver.
Yeah, is he even country music?
Yeah, yeah. When I was very young, like yeah, I've heard the song Rocky Mountain High.
Yeah, okay, so that's old school. That's going before like distorted
And
amplifiers
that's
came into the mainstream.
okay. All right.
But with those, like a lot of that stuff, even the artists I mentioned, those would be like the modern country music. They would not be the real country music from years before, which is what like purists would sort of talk about, which is more similar to folk music, I guess, in some sense. But again, if you were to go to Montana's, like the barbecue joint, or if you were to go to, I don't know, Hooters, okay, and if Hooters is playing, traditional Chinese music, or a Mexican something or a Ukrainian polka, what would you think is going on in that restaurant, despite what you might think of that restaurant as it is? But they're playing that type of music. You walk in, you're going, wait a minute, it must be taco night. Oh, it must be pierogi night. Oh, it's Chinese food night. Or
Yep. I think what
what
you're trying to
happens
say
then?
here is that yeah, the thing, the a very easy to grasp idea of a foreign country is imaginary, is man-made, is not like real, is definitely not an authentic representation of what that culture or country is actually is. Because the idea of Chineseness, how much of Chineseness this Cantonese restaurant possess, how Chinese a US born Chinese person is, that idea only exists when you're away from China. So yeah,
Well,
the
no,
reason,
what
the
I'm
exact,
trying to say is that music puts you into a mood, and if you're going into a restaurant that's playing something that you associate with a certain part of the world, then you want to eat that food. It's a marketing gimmick. It's not, I don't think it has anything to do with the
it
culture.
is. And these market, definitely has something to do with culture. The marketing people, they create this easy to understand, like stereotypes, or not stereotypes, there's these cultural symbols that like make it easy, that just like reminds people of that culture and make they think they know that culture and they
But
love
is
that
this a
culture.
bad
Like,
thing? Is this a bad thing, though? I mean,
well,
second
it's definitely a
question,
double-edged
is it a
sword.
bad
You
thing? And
can't.
second of all, if you were running a restaurant or a cafe or anything, what music would you play?
I don't know, music I like, but that's just me, because I'm at this point of my life, I'm really rejecting the idea of like people judging you from where you're from, and all those stereotypes and weird questions and microaggressions, because I've been through so much of those. So I'm like pretty against that idea. Why don't you just see me as a person? Like, I listen to music from all around the world. I don't claim to know
Okay, so
any.
but what would the music be? What do you mean by music all around the world? Because I think
I
if I were
listen.
given the playlist, it would be very different from the playlist that you create.
Yes. I'm getting into some indie pop music, just indie musicians recently, not that recently. So I'm been listening to an Indonesia artist a lot. She's got Yuna,
Okay.
and there's also this, and there's also this Indian girl called Ravina, I think. Her music is also fun. I've been listening to these two artists a lot, and some like chilling jazz hip hop music recently.
But any names,
Uh, uh no, not giving you that names.
or is it just like
It's a
do you put on a channel and you just listen to whatever shows up?
Oh, well, it's a playlist. So I basically got this from a podcast.
Yeah.
So actually, initially a friend recommended me this artist called Hero One. I think is a it's a Korean American, or yeah, I think he's Korean American. Correct me if I'm wrong. And
No idea.
I'm digging the music. So and then I listened to this episode of a podcast. It's a music recommending podcast that introduced jazz hip hop, and like that happens to be what that MV is about. So I just like uh made this playlist with all the artists they recommended, and I was listening to that without knowing any of the artist's name or looking into them. So, and I enjoy that, like not knowing what the artist's name is, because like if you find a song that you like so much, you tend to binge listen and you ruin that song.
How? How does it ruin the
No,
song?
if you listen to it like on loop for so many times, and at one point it won't be as good.
How many
And
times do you think
for
you have? Okay, so for you, how many times is it before that song is no longer as good as the first 10 times you listen to it? Or first time you listen to it?
I don't know, depend on the mood. Do you have this? Do you feel this way?
The one song that
'Cause
makes me happy every single time I listen to it, no matter what, Sympathy for the Devil by Guns N' Roses. It has been the travesty that I've seen Guns N' Roses many times in many countries, and they've never played it
Mhm.
live. It's the only cover song they have never played live, so far as I know. The other ones, they have a whole album of cover
Okay.
songs, and they've never played Sympathy for the Devil live. I even tweeted Axl Rose before Hong Kong shows, and I never got a response. Never heard GNR play it. I don't think they can actually, because that song was so, I don't want to say overproduced, but it was so studio made that it would
Mhm.
be very difficult for them to reproduce it in the same way. It was made for a soundtrack back in 1994, but for like
Mhm.
a very specific movie. But yeah, that's the one song that every time I play it or hear it being played, I'm like, you know what? Life's not so bad. It's pretty good. Things are okay.
But do you play it on loop, like binge listen to that
Oh
for
yes.
like
Oh
3 hours?
yes. That song
Do
can be
okay,
binge listened to
okay.
where I'm like, yep, because the maracas, the I mean,
You
it's fantastic. It's got so much dynamics to it. No, best song, best cover song ever made. The only other song, what was it? It was actually the song Slipknot, their live album 9.0. But their after I broke up with my first girlfriend way back in the day, the album that I
the
listened to was
smart the smart one.
that album, and it was and then the album that they released at that time was what was it was Subliminal Verses, I think it was, and then they had a song called Snuff. That one I listened to on repeat, but then also I knew that I personally was not okay. That something I needed to figure things out when I was listening to that Slipknot album, and it didn't feel the same way because the Joey Jordan's double kick in the live album was always something that got me through my shitty job at that time, and it stopped working. I was like, okay, this is fucked up. Something's really wrong here. This is something I gotta fix.
What was the name of the song again?
The Slipknot song that post breakup was Snuff, SNUFF. But then the album that I knew where I was kind of like, okay, this is obviously an emotional time for me because this album is not feeling the same way it did before. That's the Slipknot 9.0. It's a live album they put out back in 2006, 2007, something like that. Fantastic album. Best album ever. I mean, aside from the Guns N' Roses Sympathy for the Devil single, best album ever. Basically, that's so yeah. Those are the ones I binge listen to. Since then, I I don't binge listen. I listen to a lot of EDM music now, a lot of electronic stuff. But since it's all very similar in sense in like I can pick a style
Yes,
of
yeah, I
EDM.
definitely noticed that in EDM. So, and I noticed this trend for like popular music now in Korea and in China too, to have this EDM drop.
Oh yeah.
Um, and each and every one of the pop songs sounds the same.
Well, you're
Like
not listening
the
to the
just
right stuff then.
okay, yeah, send me the link. Send me
Well,
a playlist.
some of
Give me
the
the right
bigger
song to
names
listen
that I
to.
can think of right now, because I was in Wuhan last November for what was it called? Not
Hmm.
EDC, the other one, VAC, Vision and Color Festival.
Hmm.
Rehab was supposed to be there. He dropped out. Was Timmy
Oh,
Trumpet
I
there?
know Rehab. Hmm.
But then DJ Snake was there. Hardwell wasn't there, but they played some of his stuff. There was another guy. There was 4H, and then there was another interesting. Oh, I can't remember. But there WW Headhunters. So there's quite a few names that came to Wuhan, but there's other ones as well that, I mean, you listen to them and you can hear it's mainstream electronic, but if you were to listen to non-mainstream, it would be very difficult for you to pick out who exactly was mainstream and wasn't. I guess you would know because like Timmy Trumpet and Hardwell and those guys, you listen to their songs and they have a hook that other people just cannot make.
Okay.
EDM's not very big in China, is it? It's not a very popular thing. K-pop is what sort of is very popular.
K-pop is not. Is K-pop a genre?
Yes.
It
Yes,
it.
it's a genre.
I
It
mean,
has to be a genre. There's a whole
it is a
Gangnam
genre,
Style.
not like not. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That sort of thing. That sort of earworm, viral going things, but not like musically. K-pop now is so heavily influenced by. It's not that like original sound anymore. It's never. Well, I wouldn't say this because this is going on YouTube, but I don't think music wise it's a style, right? Because
Why
like
not?
I know
How can it
no
not be a
I know
style?
K-pop. I know K-pop groups that are doing more like rock things, and I know there are groups that are more EDM sounding, and there are also like more I don't know like pop sounding groups. It's just in the K-pop community because I've been like looking into these for a while. I used to think like, oh, all K-pop girl groups or like the boy groups are all the same. They're just products like produced by different but same companies, but they are not. Their music style is still like heavily polished and it's very like finished product and not like made by themselves, but it's still they have their different sound to each group. And there are even like band like groups in which the members actually play instruments and produce some of their own music.
What? You mean the pop singers actually play the instruments? Oh, that's it. It's over. It's done. That K-pop is dead. I mean, as soon as you have the people dancing on stage actually playing the instrument, it's done. It's dead. Well, okay, next. Next.
No, I think I haven't like actually checked those performances out, but I think the instrument playing bands don't actually dance because I don't see how that will work. But they're like most of the groups are still like the poppy dance heavy idol groups. Yeah. That's I'm under that impression.
So, what do you
But
think about when you hear um, a Chinese group, a Mando pop group, not just Mando pop, but any sort of pop group from China, where they start throwing in English words, or vice versa, an American, like a US American group, starts singing, but they're in English, but then they throw in a couple of Chinese words. How do you react to that?
I'm not sure. Like you just like I feel like this is at least the third time you're asking me like this sort of questions. How would you react to like people from the other culture use or misuse or like appropriate things from another culture? But um yeah,
Well, which one
sometimes
is
it's
it
wrong.
though? Okay, but which one is it? I mean, because if you're going to say it's
And
misappropriating or misusing it, then at what point do you call out the K-pop groups? Because the K-pop groups do this all the time, and you were talking about
yes,
K-crop,
and I was just like listening
K-pop.
to an episode of podcast about that. I think it's very interesting. And the host they said something I really agree is that like all the culture appropriation we are actually like talking about and pointing fingers at are actually misappropriations.
In
Um
what way?
yeah, in a way that it makes the people from that culture uncomfortable
How?
because it's a well because it's weird and they're reducing it. Well, if an American girl group is to I don't know, like we're Chinese traditional, where let's say like qipao and do a dance with like Chinese style fans. I don't know. I would feel uncomfortable because I don't even get to do that in the US. And they are trying to like uh they make a part of Chinese traditional culture um to just like they're trying to reduce Chineseness and the idea of Chinese culture
Not
just
sure
for
they're
mere
trying to reduce
entertainment.
it.
Well, a
No,
lot
I,
of
I think by
times,
they're not reducing it. They're using an element. I would go back to the marketing element about it, but they're trying to establish a connection. Now, whether or not
yes,
you see that
but that
connection as
that
being authentic is another question. But to get back to
that's another.
when you're saying misappropriation, let's go back to the whole thing of K-pop groups, Mandopop groups using English and they're not pronouncing
Yeah.
it properly. Is that a misappropriation of language? And as an English speaker, are you saying I can be offended by this, especially if they wear a suit or
No, it's
a
different.
collared
It,
shirt
it
of something?
always it always comes down to power. Are we like doing this Michelle Foucault thing again? So it always comes down to power because
How? How does it come
popular
down to
culture.
power?
It always comes down to power because like white culture or whatever is considered cool in American culture, Canadian culture, Australian culture, or just mainstream Western culture just has more power. What is important in the US become important globally. But what's important in China and what is widely liked by Chinese people, they don't become global. They don't have power.
Okay,
People
so what
don't
should that
go
be
check
then?
on them.
What should that be then? If you're saying that Chinese people are sorely misrepresented or underrepresented in the global stage in terms of power, in terms of cultural soft power, what is it? What are they missing?
What do you mean? What are they missing?
Well,
Power.
you're saying
It's
that whatever's American mainstream is what the power is. Well, so what's missing from that isn't Chinese or fairly representing China or any other
because
country for
like
that matter?
well I, well this is actually understandable because a lot of times Chinese music aren't that good, aren't that polished. Like they're it's just like not well a lot of times is not represented or uh like not getting mainstream spotlight, but Chinese music or movies are actually some like good stuff. But the other times, the most of the times, it is incompatible compared to its Western counterpart. Not because Chinese people aren't talented or Chinese elements, Chinese authentic, Chinese native, local elements, they won't work and they aren't cool. It's not that. It's just we didn't have that long time and environment for, I don't know, art to flourish. But
How
the
much time
the
do you
status quo,
need? China brags
the,
about its 5,000 years of history and culture and language.
well, you need to stop this. We have this cultural revolution thing that basically kills all culture, right? And we have all the major censorship things going on that restricts the creativity and the freedom of creators all the time. So it is hard. It is harder to flourish as an artist in China compared to the West. But that's not the point we're trying to make here because like this we still got time and the point is the status quo where
But
like
that is
the
the
American
point, because
the
if you're
Ameri-
saying that
the,
China it has reset itself in terms of, because that's what the Cultural Revolution was meant to do, was reset its cultural zero point. That
it
you're
was
saying
not.
that it's not
It was
equal to what
Mao
Hollywood is
claims to be.
producing or America's producing. I mean, at what point do you say, are you saying that Chinese cinema or arts is just not that good? Or are you saying that they need more time to catch up? Which way are you going
Well,
here?
I would say that like currently, most of them aren't that good production wise or like concept wise. But the thing is, like the the situation, the status quo that American movies, Western popular culture just constantly get more global attention and popularity. This will perpetuate the belief that Chinese music or Chinese creativity is just intrinsically inferior. And a lot of Chinese people internalize this, and that further in turn limits the development of Chinese music and movie. And that is what's harmful. And that's what like we don't want to see. Right. So that's why like some sort of representation is needed. Because when I was young, or like a lot of people still think this way, that like Chinese movie is just like not gonna be that good. There's not gonna be good Chinese movies, but that's not the case. And it's really hard for a Chinese movie to go global mainstream. But any American mainstream movie is pretty much globally mainstream or popular, right?
No,
But for it is. Oh my
no,
god, it is.
no, no. You are. I'm going to assume here, but you can clarify this. You can correct me. You are talking about the major Hollywood releases, probably Marvel,
Yes.
or the latest Bond movie, or some other sort of popular, mainstream, mass produced, and now Chinese company sponsored film production. Not any American film. There are a lot more American films out there, and there's whole genres of American films that are ignored by Chinese people and other people because they don't match the same criteria of something you want to sit down and watch for the next 2 hours with a lot of different people. There's film festivals dedicated to this.
Yes, yes, but of course those exist and they're independent, I don't know, like avant-garde, independent,
Not just
like
avant-garde. There's other films.
niche
Film noir is a
films.
whole genre unto itself that was popular before,
Yes, in
and
China
it's not
too.
mainstream anymore.
The comparison we're just making is between mainstream American movies and mainstream Chinese American movies. We're comparing mainstream to mainstream. I'm not
But
comparing
are you
mainstream
saying
Chinese movies.
Chinese American, or are you saying Chinese mainstream movies? Because you're trying to compare those movies that are made in the United States and then the movies that are made
Mhm.
by Chinese American cooperation, and then you're saying that they're misrepresenting or not fairly representing China. But then, if China wants to be fairly represented, they have to make their own movies.
I am talking about Chinese movies.
So where's
Yeah.
the disconnect?
What do you mean? I lost it here.
Because
You
you
are.
just said that the Chinese and Chinese American movies that they're not,
I'm not.
there's that
At no
type, but they're
point.
not Chinese movies.
I meant to say Chinese American movies. I said like Chinese movies and American movies. I didn't say Chinese. What is Chinese American movie?
You tell me. I mean, there's a Chinese hyphenate American film genre as well. The people who moved away from China 100 years ago, they had kids, and they do make their own movies, and they
Well,
get
I'm pretty
funding
sure
from the
that's
government
not
for it.
American movie. That counts as American movie. A lot of like popular culture works are led by Asian American actress or actors in these years. I see a lot
Such
coming
as
out.
which ones?
The To All the Boys I Loved Before. That was I don't watch rom coms, but Netflix it persists. It's just like recommend that to my homepage for like 1 week straight, and then I ended up watching it.
Wait a minute, but wait a minute. Why are you using Netflix? If you're saying that Chinese films are underrepresented, why are you using Netflix, which is an American company? Why aren't you using the Chinese equivalent and watching
Are you gonna
Chinese
like?
films?
Are you gonna bust me for this, for not loving my country enough to use
But
Tencent
you're the
Video
one
or
who's
Ichi?
blaming a United States and mainstream white cultural whatever it is, saying that they're misrepresenting, and it doesn't sound like you're supporting your own cultural output. I mean, what's wrong with
What?
Chinese
Oh
cinema
no.
or Chinese
You,
streaming services that you're not watching those
first,
things?
well, I won't agree that you summarize my opinion like this, because I never, at no point did I like blame white people or like blame America for this. I'm not doing this. What I'm saying is
You
just like
referenced
we
the
have.
white culture, the mainstream Western culture, which you were alluding is primarily white. And I've asked you about this before, saying why you say it's white culture. It's not. It's not just white people. It's a foreign culture. It's
It is
not
not.
Chinese culture.
And I believe I didn't say white when we were talking about movies, at least that much. But
So what did you
yeah,
mean when you're saying that Chinese
American
films,
popular
Chinese
culture
culture
has
is not
power.
represented properly in mainstream media, which I mean you'd have to start defining what mainstream media is. I mean,
I didn't say
you're
mainstream
using
media.
Netflix, but you're not using the Chinese streaming media services. Why
Yes,
not?
because they have apps and their interface is ugly, and they charge without noticing you, and they're weird, and Netflix has more content. And you can watch Chinese films with Netflix too. Surprise. Uh yeah, what I would try to say is that American popular culture still has power. Um while Chinese popular culture or Chinese, I don't know, like video streaming platforms or content, video content, audio content, or like any content, still has to catch up. Um, it's not, it's still like worth more attention and representation. I wouldn't, I don't want to use the word representation right now. Let's just use attention in the global media scene. I'm not like saying media representation, because that will sound like I'm urging some sort of media just appears, just come out of nowhere and like have this quota of how much Chinese stories, how much coverage should Chinese popular culture get, and how much coverage should American popular culture, Canadian popular culture get. It doesn't work that way, because well, I work in media and I study media and journalism, and I still intend to do that like for my future career. Um, and one thing I know is that media is not, there is no media in the world right now that can count as a global media. New York Times is a New York based media. Um, the
But what about something
Washington
like
Post,
Twitter or even Facebook, or I mean
yeah,
even Weibo would be international in its scope.
social so even social media is not like that decentered, because like when internet first started out, like people just have this very optimistic outlook of the future, that like internet is gonna make everything more equal and I don't know, more decentralized. But it turns out just like it's not. Well, I actually have this example for Weibo and WeChat, which are like most popular social media sources for regular people to gather information from after the initial years, where you can like actually get followers and rewards just because, just for good content. Now it's getting, the environment is getting harder for like independent content creators. for like
Why?
that's starting from
If
zero.
anything, it should be
Because
easier.
no, because well, in China it's still like different because there's censorship and uh there's the government backed state media. They have more power. They can post unlimited times in a day on WeChat official accounts. But if you have a personal account, you can only post one time a day.
What's
So
wrong with that?
that's a power asymmetry. You gave the state media more power, more, I don't know, like algorithm support to like push them on your homepage. And yeah, it's getting harder for people because, well, at least for me, I used to subscribe to a lot of WeChat official accounts, and I still do this. I don't do this on WeChat anymore. I still do this on Weibo, on Twitter. So when I see somebody's opinion is interesting or something is like extremely well said, or I think this person is interesting, I would just follow this person. But more times, more often, I just follow this person because he or she is famous or everybody else is talking about him or her, or he is important, like in a either good or bad, like in both ways. And I want to stay up to date about what he's saying. Like Donald Trump, I don't enjoy reading his tweets at all, but I just follow him to keep up because
But you don't
it's
have to. You can
important
block
and
him.
I'm supposed to know that.
Why? Why do you have to know
Yes, but
that?
I want to, well, I'm a journalist, but yeah, but a lot of times you just want to stay informed. You want to stay informed, and you try that at least you try to make your information pool wholesome. Like just you have all sorts of different information, even those you don't like that much, but you have to know them. You cannot like just build your own, what's that called? Like information cocoon. That's a Chinese one. The echo chamber. You don't want to build your own echo chamber. Yeah.
Echo chamber probably is what
Uh,
you mean.
yeah. So you don't want that to limit your worldview, um, and to feel good
Right, but I mean,
because
with
you
that, I
don't
mean, I
read you don't
understand what
read
you're saying with Twitter and Instagram and all of those. I'm not on Chinese social media other than WeChat because I don't need to be. The few that I do follow on WeChat are mostly food related. There's some news, but that's because they publish in English. And in terms of Twitter or Instagram, I follow the things that I want to learn about. If I don't want, I've blocked a lot of the trending political social media popularity stuff. I've blocked it all. It's I want stuff about how to make films, music. I want stuff about travel. I don't want all this other stuff. Or language learning is another thing. I have a lot of foreign language accounts going through my Twitter feed. I'm not
Mhm.
reading. I mean, you mentioned it before when we were talking doom scrolling. I don't do that. I don't do that on Instagram, Twitter, or anything. Even on Facebook, I unfollow people who are constantly posting things about any number of subjects that you're just going. It's they have nothing else to talk about other than that one thing. Gone. I unfollow them. So if they can't be diverse, and this is part of the reason why I've tried to start publishing more content on my own blog is to contribute more to the positive side rather than to that consistent doom scenario that everyone seems to be succumbing to. So yeah, if you're not happy with it, block them, unfollow them.
Well, I admire what you're doing and think I think it's healthy. But like, well, my logic behind this is that the things that make you grow the most and the things that perfect you, that make you improve the most, are not always gonna make you comfortable. So when I learn English, when I especially like when I first started learning English, speaking English wasn't comfortable. It was very painful. It was very painful. But
But
when you keep
can
speaking
I
it, you
just
get better.
say one thing about those uncomfortable feelings? I don't
Yeah.
think I'm alone in saying that those uncomfortable feelings should not be depressing. They should be uplifting. It might be uncomfortable. Oh, I can't speak English. Oh, I can't speak Chinese. But at least I'm making progress according to my own standards. And I know because when I talk to Chinese people and they say, your tones are terrible, your vocabulary, your grammar, I go, yes, but it's far better than it was 5 years ago, far better than a year ago. Good thing I'm not going by your standard, because if I was going by your standard, whoever standard that might be, then I would never match up, because there's always going to be someone better. But no, none of those uncomfortable feelings should be depressing,
Mhm.
unless that's somehow you create your best poetry or art out of it, or your best work. But even then, anyone who says that they revel in depression, I would say be careful, get help, because most people who fight with depression end up killing themselves. And that is something you have to be very careful about. You have to be very cognizant of and aware of, that if you have those feelings, that there is help that you can get, and that you should not be feeling like that all the time. Because regardless of what people say about the art, oh, the best art is created in depression. No, it's not true. Yes, you go through depressing times, but then you come out of it and you create your art once you are okay to talk about those things and possibly even laugh. So no, those uncomfortable
Yeah.
feelings should not be depressing. Which is what Twitter
Hannah
feed is.
Gatsby
It's that toxic
learned.
social media is all depressing.
Well, you will enjoy the show. It's called Nanette. It's a comedy show of Hannah Gatsby. She's an Australian comedian and feminist and lesbian. Surprise. But yeah, she actually argued something very similar to you, which is like people shouldn't be saying the greatest arts are born out of depression or pain or torture that much. Yeah, which I 100% agree. Self care is very important. And I actually have this Twitter, I follow this journalist, and what she does is remind people, it's like tweets, do daily tweets that remind people, are you doom scrolling? If you are, go get some water and take some rest. That's all she does. Like remind people to take a rest from the feed, because it's never ending, right? And I find that really sweet. But yeah, people have different standards, and it's not always that following other people's standards. Sometimes you just look at other people's standards and use that to adjust your standards, and you use that
Okay,
to
so but
like,
with all of your social media and your standards and your scrolling and your doom scrolling, when do you say enough is enough? When do you step away from social media?
well, usually well, recently I've been setting up a time limit, but it's a daily time limit for me to stay on social media. On iPhone, you can do this thing like where you set up the time. You can the time cap of using a certain app, and for me that is 1 hour for Weibo. And for Twitter, I just like I have this pattern that I read newsletters and news websites in the morning, and I read Twitter during my lunch in the noon, and I read books, like actual books, at night. So I'm trying to like stick to the schedule for a month now, and it's like working. Most of the time it's working for me, because the feed never ends and you need to stop at a time. But I really like social media. I'm an avid social media user because I find my time rewarding. It is rewarding. Sometimes it's depressed, but it is rewarding, at least to me, in my experience. Because while you are looking at things and you filter at the same time. You filter out the people who shit post too much. You filter out those people who only post things that align with their like political view, or they only like go on and on about one single issue and get too emotional in talking about things. Because personally, well, I was a I'm still like somehow is a debater. I do that a lot back in college, and I do believe that there is a best practice in discussion and debating, as long as it's done in a constructive way. It's very helpful.
But
It
do you think that
helps.
still exists here in this modern day with the social media trolling that goes on?
I do. I actually do. I actually do. It does exist. You look hard enough and it does exist. And there are a lot of times I go through Twitter and I've seen like all those stupid things. And sometimes I just see some light spirit fun thing. And there are other times I look at a post and there are some like there are certain like a list of 10 follow and the 10 like people on Twitter handles that I follow and go check out on a regular basis, like those 10 smart people out there. And you see something, a tweet, it's so well said. It's just so well said. And you look at it and you think, oh my God, this is so correct. And this is so well said. And this, like, why didn't I think of this? How can someone describe something this accurately or make this like original, refreshing comment?
So
And at
okay,
that
but we've been
moment,
talking a lot about Twitter. Does the
okay,
same
like
thing
our
exist with Weibo at all, or is it or WeChat, like, or is it just confined to these
no
Western
we
sources?
WeChat is completely different thing. But Weibo, yes, you mean trolling, of course. In
No,
a
not just the trolling. I know trolling exists on Weibo. I've been on there at least once, but like in terms of positive stuff, stuff that you're going, hey, why? That's so great that I
yes,
wish I could write it. I mean, does
yes,
that? So
very
where
much
does that
so.
happen in
It,
Weibo?
it's you well, I will get like really emotional and speak of this because I think most of my most of my convictions and inspirations I've been getting in the past 2 years actually came from Weibo. So Weibo has been a back in 2018. That time I was still in the States. That's the time I was feeling very depressed because I so back in the time when I was in Maryland, I don't feel like I don't felt I fit in. Like I may look like it right now, and I might like fit in better when I was in New York City, but not in Maryland. And when I first like got there in the US, I still like feel very depressed. It's just so depressed. And like so at that time I used Weibo extensively, excessively. Um that time there's still not that much censorship, but there's still a lot of censorship, but not that much going on. There's Zhou Baosong, which is a political science professor from Hong Kong Chinese University. He's just out there all the time trying to calm people down and trying to speak truth to power and trying to like explain things to explain things in a shed new light on issues, cultural things, and he's always there answering questions from young people. There's other like professors. One of them used to be a political science scholar in Columbia University, and there's also like other younger people who went to the West and studied and mostly social sciences, and they are posting relentlessly on Weibo about social justice issues and feminism, gender issues, and like equality. And one of the girls
And so is this stuff uplifting
studied,
for you, or what is this stuff doing for
it
you?
is very uplifting. It's very uplifting, and like a lot of them. So I followed them for a long time, and what is disappointing that half of them is gone right now because like the government just Weibo, the platform, just took their accounts away because they like speak of sensitive things too much. But this is very uplifting. So in such a toxic environment, there are this bunch of people that are keep debating and keep explaining things that are interesting to them, that are that they think are important to the society, and they're critiquing Chinese culture in a global perspective, and they're doing a podcast. So a lot of podcasts are by this like small group of intellectuals. So this group of people actually influenced me very, very deeply. One of them is a Chinese-born journalist that works in U.S. and plenty of them are, and that actually inspired me to become a journalist that write in English.
Okay, so you've studied overseas, but so who are these accounts that you would follow that you would recommend to other foreign students who might be feeling the same culture shock when there's, especially nowadays? I mean, maybe they're locked away, locked outside of China, or they're locked inside of wherever they are. Who would you recommend they follow?
On Twitter or on Weibo, because on Weibo a lot of them are
Both.
gone. Okay, I would recommend the podcast. It's called Loud Murmurs. That's the English name, but the Chinese one is called 小声喧哗. And the Chinese name basically means like it's the opposite of loud murmur. It means like babbling like lightly, or yeah, so the it doesn't matter. So the podcast is hosted by four young women. I think three of them are in New York City, or at least two of them. One of them is used to be a journalist at Quartz News, and one of them is a well, I would just not like disclose their personal information because I
All right,
know
so
most of them right now.
Loud Murmurs
So
is one. Are there
they're the
any other
best.
channels, or is it just the one channel?
There are other channels. There's a lawyer in New York City that I know of. She's really good. She's called Zhao Danyang, and I love reading her stuff. And there are other people, scholars. There's someone called Lin Santu. He is, I believe, he's doing JD in Cornell or somewhere else. But he studies political science. He's still very active and speaking out on Twitter, and like appearing in a lot of cultural and political shows, intellectual discussions and webinars, those things. He is definitely a really good source. And there's someone called 纽约北大飞, and there is also like just the tons of them, and like I don't even agree with
Which ones are
each
the
and
most
everything
important
they
that they should
say.
be following?
My personal favorite is Loud Murmurs, that podcast, and the four girls were hosting the podcast.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put those links or some of those names on the show notes. All right. So,
Yeah.
is your website up and running yet, or have you finished publishing that just yet?
I published that. So originally I bought the domain using WordPress, and then I decided that I should just like continue to work with Wix.
Right.
So I built my website with Wix, and then I tried to like transfer that newly built Wix website to my domain that is purchased on WordPress.
No,
So
that's
I
not gonna
did
work.
that. I even bought a membership for God's sake, and I connect that. And Wix told me you should wait for like 2 to 3 days, and your new website will be connected to your old domain. But now I have waited for like 4 to 5 days. When you click on chencaiwei.net, it still shows the original WordPress page, which is empty. So I'm gonna email them probably, but you can like put
You
my
might have
name
to
there.
clear your cache or something. I know what you're talking about. There's some sort of like you have to change the cache or the of your the backup of your
Is it
website. I can't remember what it is. I did this years ago when I had the same issue. But yeah, call customer
um, um
support. I'm sure they'll be able to figure it out for you. But okay, so
Oh,
what's your website in case people want to see what you're working on because you're doing all this different writing these days. So what's the website?
it's my name. It's my name in the Chinese way, last name first, and first name plus.
So which one is it?
Chen Caiwei dot net, spelled ChenCaiwei dot net, because the com one's already taken. Yeah, it's still half finished, sort of under construction, but visit my website. Why
And you're
not?
also on Twitter as well. What's your Twitter handle?
It's yes, good question. What is my Twitter handle? It is let me see. Okay. Oh my god, I got a direct message. That's new. It's Caiwei C. It's my name, Caiwei Caiweic, with a C, which is the initial of my last name.
All right.
Mhm.
My last question to you, because I know you sent me to the About Me page on your website, and I told you not to put this in there, but how do you pronounce your name for everybody who is not familiar with the Chinese language?
Okay, so um yeah, I try I try to educate people about the tones. My name is Caiwei. That's like two characters, and Cai is the third tone. It's like this in Chinese is Cai,
Hmm.
and Wei is the first tone. So Wei, and it means so it is from a ancient Chinese poem. So long
And
story there. Caiwei. And for anyone who do not know how tones works, I'm fine with Caiwei or like whatever. The C in Chinese is pronounced like TS
mhm.
in English, like cats, like the plural of cats, like that. Yeah, that's how you should pronounce C. Do not call me Caiwei. That's my
Does that happen?
borderline. Just don't. Yeah, my well, the professor of my graduate program still calls me that, and I never got a
Ouch.
good chance to correct her.
All right. Well, we won't mention their name. But okay. But your family name,
Of course,
Chen Caiwei. Chen. What tone is Chen?
Chen is it's a very common Chinese name.
But
The
which tone is it?
second
Second tone.
second
So it goes up.
Chen. Yeah, in Chinese like Chen Caiwei, but
Chen
like, my friends just call
Caiwei.
it Cai. Yeah, third tones. Third tone is the hardest, right, for non-native speakers.
Right. Well, I'll work on it as well. Okay. Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you. We've covered a lot of ground today. It's been fantastic, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be interested in pulling this conversation apart for quite a while. But righto. Have a good night. We'll talk again. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thank you.
And that was episode 13, Steven Sersky podcast with Chen Caiwei. And we will talk again. Thanks very much for joining me. Bye bye.